Hold on one sec. We will be starting momentarily. Actually, if somebody in the Daylight group could start a watch party, that would be very interesting. Let's see here. Are we getting audio? Check. Do we have audio? Okay, there we go. Very good. Welcome back to Daylight. Change yourself, change the world. This is Daylight number 9. Today is Tuesday, March the 31st. And today I'm going to stick on a theme that I covered a lot last week, which are decentralized tools that can help you communicate with friends, family, and loved ones during these, well, not just crisis times, but during any time. So basically, improvements on what you get out of big tech that are encrypted and can't be censored by government or big tech, which is a increasing problem that everyone is experiencing. So let me jump right in. For those of you that are new and just tuning in for the first time, the whole purpose of these videos is to help people not just survive through this crisis, but really to come out of it better than you were going into it. And I came up with this quote today: ask not what your government can do for you or what you can do for your government. Ask how you can change yourself, and by changing yourself, change the world. And so what I really want to do is share every day a new tip that you can actually apply to your life, as opposed to, we can complain about the government or we can put all of our hopes on what third parties might do to solve the problem. But at the end of the day, all of our anxiety, all of our frustration, all of the energy that we direct towards somebody else solving the problem, we could spend internally figuring out how do we make ourselves better. And so as I go through this, I'm going to recap some of the previous videos, but I'm not going to go through all of the previous Daylights. I'm just going to focus on the ones that are related to this general category of decentralized technology and technology that helps with privacy and security. So the third Daylight, I discussed a service called Library, lbry.com. Library is essentially it's a censorship-resistant alternative to YouTube. And I really recommend that you check it out. And in fact, I'm posting all of these Daylight videos on Library as well. And you can look me up. The channel there is at Daylight. And again, this entire project is based on blockchain technology. So it's decentralized. It's the community that drives how this whole network functions. And it uses a cryptocurrency called LBC, so that you as the content publisher can decide whether you want your content to be free, whether you want people to pay for it. As you use the site, you can earn some of these LBC tokens, and then use those tokens to tip people whose content that you like. So this is really a way this isn't an ad-driven model where all of your information is being given to advertisers. It's the exact opposite, completely decentralized, and uses its own cryptocurrency. So if you sign up for Library, send me a direct message or even post it on the Facebook page with your username, and I will send you some additional LBC tokens so that you can use that to play around in the ecosystem. So that's a YouTube replacement. Then Daylight number 4, and again, there are videos that are 15 minutes to 30 minutes each where I go into each of these different offerings. But to give you a summary, Minds.com is a censorship-resistant alternative to Facebook, once again based on blockchain technology and a similar type of model where instead of it being advertising-based or based on selling your personal and private information, it uses its own internal cryptocurrency that you can use to boost your own posts and to reward people whose content that you like as well. Daylight 5, I discussed an application called Signal, which you can download at signal.org. This is an encrypted way to send and receive text, audio, and video. So this is a good replacement for Facebook Messenger. It's a good replacement for any of those types of messaging services. It's a good replacement for texts that you might normally do. and it's a good replacement for any video conferencing you might do. So it uses true end-to-end encryption. So the only people that see the message are you and the person on the other end. So your ISP isn't intervening, the tech isn't interfering, government isn't intervening. And there are some really interesting features, like you can set messages to expire. So you can actually send a message or a picture, and you can say the minute the person actually views this, it gets deleted. So kind of similar to, I think Mission Impossible had a scene where, I think the actual piece of technology or computer blew up at the end, but this is not quite that. But this is a real way to take complete control over the privacy of all of your communications. The sixth daylight was about a browser called Brave. This is a replacement for Google Chrome, Safari, or any of those offerings, and I believe you can find this at brave.com. I now use this browser. Again, they completely respect your privacy. The entire model for Brave is not based on ads at all. They have their own cryptocurrency, which you can choose to use, called Brave Rewards, which you can see on the slide here, where you can choose to watch specific ads, and you earn what are called BAT tokens, which are basic attention tokens. And then with those tokens, you can contribute to various sites and voluntarily give them content if you so choose. But you don't have to do that at all, and the basic browser itself has all kinds of security and privacy features built into it. You can see this is a screenshot of me using the Brave browser for a really short period of time on my computer, because I typically use it on one of my mobile devices. But it blocked 659 ads and trackers. So if you're in New Hampshire, if you go to the Union Leader site, they'll have a thing where after 5 views, you have to subscribe. This strips out all of that. It strips out all of the ads on all of the sites. And so it ends up being 3 to 6 times faster than the browser that you're using. And on top of that, there's no ad tracking or anything like that. So today I'm going to discuss a Proton Mail, which I believe is a superior alternative to whatever you might be using, Gmail or Hotmail or whatever the main free cloud-based services are. This is run by an organization out of Switzerland. A bunch of engineers and computer scientists put this together. And just to recap, I doubt I need to spend a lot of time explaining how unsafe your current email solution likely is. But just to give you an example, anybody that had a Yahoo account in 2013, there was a breach that literally affected every single account on Yahoo. 3 billion accounts were hacked, and personal information was extracted. Additional issues with Gmail. This is an older article, but even according to a court filing that Google was involved in, and you can see how old this is, people sending email to any of Google's 425 million Gmail users have no reasonable expectation that their communications are confidential, the internet giant has said in a court filing. So, I mean, not that anybody actually reads the terms and conditions of any of these software products, but if you do spend the time, they make them these nice little click wrap agreements where you have to scroll down page after page to get to that point where you can finally click the accept button. But if you actually spend the time to read it, they're really long documents, and at the end, most of the time, you have no control over your own data. And of course, governments can come in and take this data at will. In the video that I did on Library, I actually discussed how some of my communications, particularly on Facebook, were dug into. My private communications were dug into through an action from the AG's office in the state of New Hampshire, where they not only seized some of my communications, but they then put a sealing order, because oftentimes, for instance, Facebook's policy says, well, if we're notified that we have to give up some of your private information, we will actually notify the customer that we had to give up some of their information. In this case, the AG's office, my understanding is, put a sealing order on that. So not only did they take my private communication, but I wasn't notified of this. And so this is in the quote, live free or die state. So anytime you're dealing with big tech, you really can't expect any privacy whatsoever. Edward Snowden has showed us that in his latest book that government officials actually have the ability to actually have a system where they can literally type in your address or your phone number and more or less see in real time what's going on your devices. They can turn on your cameras without you noticing. The violation of privacy is huge, and there are all of these back doors with your internet service provider, with big tech and everything else, which is why the tools that I'm recommending work outside of that entire system. And this becomes important now as we are, depending upon where you are, if you're in the United States, we're at various levels of lockdown and arguably potentially getting worse over the next couple of weeks. So these are good tools for you to have in good times and in bad times. And these are tools that some of these I've used for a long time. Some of them are more recent. I'm going to show you a couple of, these are the generic screenshots from the Proton Mail website. And then I'm actually going to do a live demonstration. So, but I mean, it has a lot of the common features that you're already used to in something like Gmail. You can flag, you can set up different tags in your inbox and apply different labels. There are all kinds of different interesting features with respect to how you encrypt the message and the control that you put on it. And actually, rather than even show you their screenshots, why don't I just jump in and I will show you my, there we go. So this is this is a new Proton Mail account that I set up just today. And I set this up specifically for daylight, so for my daylight only communications. And so I will, I mean, if you look at it, it looks a lot like Gmail. I mean, the actual user interface. And I'm sure there are additional features in Gmail and additional plugins that you can get that you can't get for Proton Mail. And in fact, I kind of view this as stuff that's not that sensitive. I haven't completely abandoned Gmail, and obviously I'm still using Facebook. But if it's something that's actually sensitive, and increasingly if I'm communicating with really close friends and family, I'm using Proton Mail, and then I'll still use Gmail, and that's where all my junk mail and all of my receipts for various e-commerce sites, all of that stuff goes there. I use Proton Mail for stuff that I consider to be important, things that have attachments associated with them that I want to be kept secure and confidential. But just to really quickly go through here, I'll show you if I send an email, what that looks like, and at least show you what some of the interesting features are. So I'll just type in a simple, this is a test message, and you can see down here, this is where it gets really interesting. So if I click on this hourglass, this is where I can set that Mission Impossible style expiration date on the message. So I can say, look, I want this thing to expire in 1 hour. Now, if I'm sending something to somebody who already has Proton Mail, then it's encrypted end to end. I don't have to add any additional security features to make that happen. But most of the people that you are going to be communicating with do not actually have Proton Mail. You can still have the message encrypted. And so in essence, what happens is you send the message from your encrypted account, it hits their inbox, and then it takes them to the web server. It takes them to a page where they actually view the message. So this is the way you still get the security features without having to add a lot of technical complexity to it. Because a lot of the email encryption systems that were used years ago, you had to have a PGP key, and there were a lot of steps involved in encoding the emails and everything else, and it made it very difficult to use. But in this case, it's actually much, much easier. So in this case, I'm sending a message to myself using the password daylight, and then sending it, and then boom, I'm done. But I wanted to show you the features of Proton Mail again that are the additional features that you don't get when you are using Gmail. So I encourage you to check this out and sign up for it. It's free. There are, paid versions of this depending upon how much storage you want to use. I'm actually having some difficulty with my mouse, so bear with me 1 second here. Okay. All right, here we go. Confirm that, and there we have it. So I'm going to flip back to presentation, and that is essentially it. This is a relatively short video. I'll just leave on a quote from Frank Abagnale, who, if you're not familiar with him, he was if you've ever seen the movie Catch Me If You Can, he's that guy. And he had a very interesting quote that I think really applies to everything that we've discussed here today regarding the need for encrypted secure email. He said, "Every case involving cybercrime that I've been involved with, I've never found a master criminal sitting somewhere in Russia or Hong Kong or Beijing. It's always ends up that somebody at the company did something they weren't supposed to. They read an email, went to a website they weren't supposed to, etc." I mean, and that's true. That is often the case, and that really speaks to a lot of the vulnerabilities with some of these systems that we use. So I hope you consider taking a look at Proton Mail and then all of the other services. And I'm going to continue this week to talk about a few more services. I really, there's kind of a, internal process of how you can prove yourself. And I expected to be talking a lot more about kind of health and wellness related things. But because of what's going on with the government and what's going on with censorship, I wanted to kind of get these out of the way first. So probably do a couple of more introductions to secure services over the course of this week. With that said, one final thing. Tomorrow at noon, I'm going to do I'm calling it a walk-in chat. So if you're in the Daylight Facebook group, you'll see I have a Zoom meeting set up. So I'm basically going to go outside and take a walk, and anybody that wants to join in, there's no specific topic. I just wanted to set up a more interactive way for people that are part of the Daylight community to actually talk to one another. And that's one thing that I hope is a big advantage of what's going on with everything here. I think we're finding as people are learning how to work from home that there's a lot of companies have been doing this. I've been working at home since 2004, and a lot of people have been skeptical of it, thinking that you'd have all this lost productivity. But the reality is the opposite is true. And I think one thing that's going to come out of this is there will be new technology that helps people connect even better. But for tomorrow, using Zoom, I want to figure out a way where we can actually have a conversation instead of it just being me broadcasting a video. So with that said, have a good evening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.